Hey there everybody. In this video we're going to be talking about the Sony a7 III. This is going to be my very brief, quick, high-level review preceding the kind of broken up, nice segmented portion. My name is Joshua Koerner. I make reviews, a few tutorials. I talk a lot about the camera industry, stuff that's coming out, stuff that has come out, what it means, what its impact is on the industry, and how companies provide value to users through the products that they make. So stick around, this is going to be a nice quick little video and we're going to provide some value to you as well. So we're going to kind of break this into 4 quick sections: hardware, stills, video, and HLG. With hardware, I want to first talk about the AF joystick. This is a body element. This is part of the physical design of the camera, and in my opinion, it's one of the key parts of it. It allows for more creative expression more easily because you can switch to a flexible point and be able to get your composition no matter where that focus point is on the frame with very little effort. Now, the other side of that, of course, is that the AF spread throughout the frame is massive. The AF spread covers a very, very vast majority of the sensor. So you're going to be able to put that AF point nearly anywhere and still get great results. A lot of people knock on the viewfinder. The viewfinder, in my opinion, is great. It's a little over-sharpened, I want to say, but you know, I come from the Sony Alpha 6300, where I thought the viewfinder on that was just fine. And it is, but the T-Star viewfinder in the a7 III is a huge step up from that. So it might not be a7R III A9 level of viewfinder, but it is nevertheless still a fantastic viewfinder. Speaking to this for just a second, one of the things that I love about the viewfinder and the back of the screen, the LCD, the touch LCD, I don't care about that so much, we're gonna kind of gloss over that for now, is the color accuracy. Out of the 6300, the viewfinder and the back of the screen had different color looks to them, and I couldn't quite figure out how to get those to match, but on the a7 III they do match, so I trust what I'm getting out of both the front, or the viewfinder or the LCD on the back. The startup time, however, for the a7 III is woefully long. If you've just turned it off and turn it back on again, it's going to be nice and short, but if you're just starting it up for the first time that day, it's going to take a while. That's a bit of a hassle in my opinion. I wish it were a little bit quicker, but I'll take the really good battery life, I'll take the value proposition that it provides elsewhere, and just kind of sweep that one under the rug. The touch display, which we've gotten back to since glossing over it a minute ago, is not very responsive. I don't feel like I can use that consistently in a professional way. I feel like you gotta configure it to what you want, and I don't feel like I could ever configure it to what I want because I don't want touch, I want that AF joystick. And in my opinion, they're functionally offering the same value proposition, and I'm always going to choose the AF joystick personally over the touchpad. Finally, the weather sealing on this camera is good. I've gotten it a little bit wet a couple times, not intentionally. I was out and it started raining a little bit, and it's held up really nicely. So I'm really happy about that because previously I wouldn't have trusted my 6300 or another an a7 II series body basically to be able to handle any sort of weather. Really quick here before we jump into the stills section, I would love to say thank you to those of you who have managed to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like, dislike, or comment. That engagement means so much to me. For stills, the dynamic range out of this camera is incredible. You can really pull back shadows and drop highlights to an extent that I haven't seen elsewhere, and I really love that in the cameras that I've shot, being the 60 and the 6300. So I think that this has incredible dynamic range, much better than what I've experienced 6D. That was a huge change. When I went from the 60 to the 6300, that was another huge change. And this camera was described to me, or rather the a7 II was described to me as that same level of change from the 6300 to the a7 II in terms of actual sensor capability and performance. The a7 III has been like 1.5 or 2 times more, and I'm just loving that. The resolution at 24 megapixels is enough. The problem is that the uncompressed RAWs, their file size is nearly 50 megabytes, The compressed RAWs are about 25, 24, so that works, but you know, I wish that those uncompressed could be a touch smaller, but I also understand why they can't be. And so the resolution really is enough. You're getting enough detail in those uncompressed RAW files. The other thing that has really impressed me with this camera for stills is its ability to handle high ISOs. From what I understand, it is a dual gain sensor architecture, so at different points you're going to experience nearly base ISO, which is fantastic. A lot of Panasonic's high-end cinema cameras have similar functionality and has made those cameras really kind of industry standard for a lot of industries. Now, in my experience, I've not been able to retain color depth, color accuracy, and detail on any device like I have the A7 III. The way that this handles high ISOs is incredible, and I love it. And it retains so much detail, so much color, it's just perfect. So in terms of video, the full frame 4K is really where you want to live. If you're interested in 4K, you don't want to really do the crop 4K. You're going to get the best possible option on that full frame readout. Now that really should be very little different from the Alpha 6300. However, it is. And it is because it can control those highlights much better than the 6300 can. The sensor is feeding more data about those highlights into that file. So when you're going and editing in post, you can recover a bit more of the highlights, which is wonderful. Now, the other side of that is that you're still getting the same bit rates, all that. So you do need to be careful not to fill up a card. You need big enough cards to be able to actually manage the files in 4K. The 1080p quality, though, has been really impressive. I wouldn't trust the 1080 on my 6300. I shot 1080 enough just because I didn't want to have to deal with the file size of the 4K. And I moved back away from that because the detail was awful. The detail in the 1080 on the A7 III is great. You really can't underestimate that or overvalue it. Additionally, the no additional crop for 120p is really nice, and I really like slow motion, so I'm really stoked that I can actually use all of the 1080. So I want to talk about HLG for a minute. HLG is not really designed for 8-bit cameras, it's designed for 10-bit cameras. The thing is that HLG is squeezing in some extra highlight detail, and so it's not really one tone curve. So normally you have a pretty typical S curve, and that's going to cover your midtone, your shadows, darks, shadows, midtones, highlights, overblown, right? The HLG curve is, how do I do this for you? It's more like this or like this. And there are different levels of HLG. So you can have HLG 0 through 3. And those will alter how aggressive that tailing off at the top is. So it's a Rec 709 and log combination curve. So you're going to retain a lot of the same picture, a lot of the same image through your shadows and midtones as you would in a typical Rec 709 curve, and then it kind of punches off, and that's where that log profile comes in. So it's that mix that the NHK from Japan and BBC from the UK came together to make in HLG. That tone curve really does allow a lot more creativity, a lot more flexibility in very high contrast situations. I have not shot video in anything other than HLG since that because it's allowed me the exact image that I want out of my camera. That cannot be understated in my opinion. So yeah. That's my review, the very high-level review of the Sony Alpha 7 III. Best camera on the market today. I'm so happy that I have one. It still isn't real, and it's been about a week and a half, so I'm really looking forward to getting my Ronin S and testing it out all on there and all that, and diving into all the content that I already have planned for the deeper dives into this camera, because I've really planned out some really great stuff. So I hope that you are looking forward to that as much as I am. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. If you've enjoyed this content, hitting that subscribe button, hitting the notification bell, liking or commenting really does mean the world to me, and I so much appreciate it if y'all would do that. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.